Welcome to Sunshine and Happiness channel. Here we create happiness by explaining small concepts of science and mathematics by simple experiments using the probes. Now here we are explaining the laws of inheritance. Gregor Johann Mendel, considered to be the father of genetics, gave the laws of inheritance. Here we are explaining the law of segregation. He was curious to see so much of variety in the pea plants, almost 16 varieties, 16 variations in the pea plant. So he focused on the main factor, that is the tallness and the dwarfness. So what did he do? He took a tall pea plant and a dwarf pea plant. So please mind it, these are not actual pea plants, but these are just the probes being used to represent the pea plants. So he took a tall pea plant and a dwarf pea plant and cross-pollinated the two. When he cross-pollinated two and raised the next generation from the seeds, he imagined all the plants to be of intermediate height. But to his surprise, see what he got. To his surprise, he got all of them to be tall plants. And he called it as F1 generation. So, where did the dwarfness go? Did it disappear? Was it dominated by the tallness? To find out that, he picked up a tall plant and carried out. He took a tall plant, this of F1 generation, and carried out the self-pollination. That means the genes of this plant were crossed with the genes of the same tall plant to see whether the recessiveness, whether the dwarfness has disappeared or it is still there somewhere in the factors that time called to be alleles. Yes, when the next generation of plants was developed using the seeds, to his surprise, he got his dwarf plant back. And he realized that the dwarf plant and the tall plants were in the ratio of 1 to 3. 3 tall and 1 dwarf. So these two characters got segregated in the ratio of 3:1. 3 tall and 1 dwarf. So he considered the tallness to be a dominating character and the dwarfness to be a recessive character. Tried to probe further, developed F3 generation. Now when he self-pollinated the dwarf plants and raised the F3 generation, the third generation of plants, he found all the plants to be dwarf. That means he explained that the dwarfness did not disappear in the process of reproduction, but it got segregated later on in the third generation, where all the plants from the dwarf plant resulted to be dwarf. Now let us see what happened to the tall plants. So one of the tall plants on self-pollination in the F3 generation gave all the plants to be tall, whatever. So that means the characters were intact, they were segregated. The characters maintained their entity and they got clearly segregated. The pure dwarf resulted in all the dwarf plants. The pure tall plant resulted in all the tall plants. Now let us see to the other plants what happened to them. The other two tall plants in F3 generation after self-pollination again expressed both the characters, the dwarfness and the tallness. The tall were in the ratio of 1, 2, 3 is to 1 dwarf. So out of every 4 plants, 3 plants turned out to be tall and 1 plant turned out to be dwarf. So here he said that in case of the hybrid plants, the two contrasting characters get segregated in the ratio of 3:1. Whereas the pure plants having identical characters, similar characters, result in the formation of pure plants in F3 generation. Hope the law of segregation is clear. Thank you for